And welcome everyone. This is a very strong crowd, but pleased you're able to make it. We have some special people in the audience tonight. Of course, the speaker, right here. I see you, Clarence. And over here we have Mr. Benelli, Lieutenant Colonel Benelli, daughter and son-in-law, and then we have our Hank Hine and Connie. The reason we have these guys here tonight is tomorrow they're going to be honored at the state capitol with, oh my gosh, I forgot Governor Wolf's name. Tom. Sir, but that's okay. But we wanted to have these fellows come and be recognized for their service as Pearl Harbor survivors. And they both spoke for us. Hank spoke for us a year ago. You were a B-18 bomber gunner. I don't know what a B-18 is, but it's yeah, it's an old one, right? Ugly looking thing. Yeah. And Bill, of course, he was there, and I'm thinking you were a mechanic on B-17s. Is that right? Yeah? Well, that wasn't enough, then they went and got their wings. And they flew B-17s. I know you were in Foggia. I know that you said when you got there, you asked the colonel a question, or he wanted any questions, and you said, I can't court-martial me asking a question. And your question was, Colonel, why is it that the 8th Air Force in England flies 25 missions, and we have to fly 50? And you were in that same thing. You had 50 missions that you had to fly, right? Yeah, same thing. And the colonel's response was rather unique. He said, well, yeah, that's true. You got to fly 50, they fly 25. But he said, don't worry about it, right? But you didn't stop there. He said, well, what do you mean don't worry about it? He said, because the average lifespan of a pilot in the B-17 and the ETO is 9 missions. Did he get your attention? But you went ahead and flew 58? 70. And 50 get there, and then also just Korea, right. And you also flew 30-some missions as well in the European theater, right, Colonel? Same way. I said you also flew 30-some missions or 40 missions in ETO as well. I don't know if you squadron leader. That's right. So we thought it'd be appropriate with these fellows being recognized tomorrow at the Capitol, we would recognize them here tonight. So if you stand, I'd like the people to recognize. Thank you so much, both of you. Pearl Harbor, thank you for your service, and thank you for your service. We're going to make sure you guys are recognized. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Clarence Smoyer. I met him in March of last year. I came back from Florida, and the morning paper was this tank. Remember that tank on the front page of the paper on 3rd Street? And I went down, I got there late, and the line going to see Clarence was out the door. It took me 40 minutes to get to see Nichols. You know, the author, Adam, yeah. And when I got there, I gave him my card with the World War II roundtable, and he said, you know, about 15 people told me you should meet me, or I should meet you. I said, well, that's what we do here. And that's how it all began. In the front row here on the left is a dear friend that's helped us grow our organization, and we've helped him grow his organization. He founded the Lebanon Valley Veterans Project, Lehigh Valley. Lebanon's next door, sorry about that, Lehigh Valley. And they have a very strong growth program recognizing veterans. In fact, Mike and I were co-coordinators at World War II days in Reading for several years. He's still doing it. I guess he's a masochist. I don't know, but he likes to work hard all the time. However, Mike says, I can solve your problem, Clarence, because I've already had Clarence speak, and I know him well. And I said, come on down. So I'm going to give you Mike Seward, founder of the Lehigh Valley History Project, and it's going to be his program from here on out. Mike Seward.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm only going to be a minute. I just want to talk about the book Spearhead, which is for sale out in the hallway. It's about Clarence and his battles through Europe. You read this book, and you will think you know Clarence. Great for Christmas, and I know Clarence will sign them afterwards. Right, Clarence? Yeah, he will. He'll close. If anybody's not familiar with this book, I want you to go home tonight and Google Tank Battle of Cologne, and you're going to see actual combat footage of Clarence. I've always heard people say they start reading a book and they can't put it down. Well, I've read many World War II books, and I've never found one that I couldn't stop reading until this one. So I emphasize this to be a great book. You're going to hear some Clarence's stories tonight, but you're also going to, when you read this, you're going to get in depth, and again, you're going to feel like you know Clarence. So I'm going to turn this over to Ron Ravenel, who's going to do the interview, and I guess we're going to sit up here. Thank you.
Do you want to roll the video? Thank you. Microphone. That's not fair.
Thank you for having us here today. You're seeing images here of the Bates film, the Jim Bates film, the Battle of Cologne. And I just introduced myself briefly. Been friends with Clarence and the family that kind of more or less started the story was a Seminoff family in Lehighton. They had a young son named Pete Seminoff who took it upon himself to interview 30 World War II veterans of our area. There's Clarence here without the helmet on. And one of the men he had interviewed was Clarence Smoyer. And I can still remember Gene telling me that this is a movie. This man's story is a movie. And this was about 25 years ago. And Pete has now become a major in the United States Army. But before that, he went to college. This is recently at the War.
Clarence, an apology. Clarence, we tricked you. We told you you were going to the Pentagon today for a book signing, and that is not the case. You're going to be getting the Bronze Star that you earned in World War II, and so is the rest of your tank crew. Clarence Smoyer had pre-positioned the gun to the right and lowered it to where he thought that Panther tank would be when they turned the corner. And when they breached the intersection, Homer Davis saw it first. He let out a cry. They were muzzle to muzzle with this German tank, separated by 70 yards. And when Clarence looked through his gun sight, he was looking down the barrel of that German tank.
The soldier is the army. No army is better than its soldiers. The soldier is also a citizen. In fact, the highest obligation and privilege of citizenship is that of bearing arms for one's country. Clarence Smoyer, John Luigi, Homer Davis, William McVeigh, and Bob Early all embodied that spirit.
Corporal Smoyer's exemplary performance of duty during armored combat was in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon him, the 3rd Armored Division, and the Army of the United States of America.
That's Pete Seminoff awarding the medal there to Clarence.
To conclude our ceremony today, I give you America's newest military hero, Corporal Clarence Smoyer.
That's fellow Easy Company Joe Caserta, who is a tank gunner. Also Easy Company, his tank was Everlasting, and Clarence was Eagle. But Pete Seminoff was the major in the Army there that decorated Clarence with a well-deserved Bronze Star with Valor, the highest Bronze Star, right below the Silver Star. And Pete's the one that started the whole story. Pete's the one that got it as an Eagle Scout, passed it on to the author Adam Makos, who we met at college, and the rest, as you can say, is history, that this story probably would have otherwise been lost. And I know Mike has a surprise announcement. I think this is where Mike wants to take the mic back.
Before Rod starts the interview, we just found out this afternoon that Spearhead would be a movie. So Clarence, you're going to be a celebrity in the movies.
This week that they hired screenwriters and they're going to put it together this winter and start shopping around Hollywood and see who's going to be interested in the story. So without further ado, we'll open this up to Clarence. Clarence, I know you're mic'd up there. You want me to start with some questions? Yep. He's ready to go. Can you tell us what it was like before you joined the Army? What was your life like back home in Lehighton, Pennsylvania?
We used to roller skate a lot, and ice skate in wintertime on Harlan's Dam. Oh, okay. We had a group of guys who built a cabin on the side of the dam, and a whole bunch of us would hang out. There was like a loft in the back, crawl up the ladder, and could sleep up there. But we used to make our own food. And part of the food was frog legs. Go out and shoot with a 22 and chop the legs off and skin them and throw them in the frying pan. They'd still be kicking around in their hard frying.
And you and your friends, it was a Great Depression. Lehighton was a railroad town, and a lot of you grew up around hunting, but you didn't really have the heart for it. Shot one rabbit, and it's interesting. When you get to know Clarence and the heart of the man, the things he had to do to save his family in the tank, and the man that couldn't shoot a rabbit. But what's fascinating is the fact that bullfrogs are such a hard target. Do you think that helped your marksmanship in the tank? Did it help you find the enemy before they found you?
I believe so. Believe it helped.
Do you want to talk about how you ended up in the tank corps?
After I was drafted to go into service, and there were, I think, 19 of us from Lehighton, And all but one, well, first we were all going to go to the Navy, and then one by one they drop off and say maybe their eyesight isn't good enough or something, they go to the Army. And as it turned out, only one guy lasted out and did go to the Navy. But the rest was all went to the Army. And before that, after I got out of school, I had taken a course at East Bend Airport where we dismantled an engine and then had to put it back together again and it had to be able to run. And I think the people that were at the separation center saw my record of working on engines, so they put me into the tank.
Can everyone hear okay? Maybe I'll try this other microphone. I'll get closer. So Clarence mentioned about how he got experience rebuilding airplane engines, and that experience came back to change your goals with the Army. You were hoping for a little bit of a higher job than a tanker.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine, Fitzsimmons, his name was, we were in the room and I asked him where he wanted to go, and he said he volunteered for the paratroopers. Well, I said, well, if you're going there, we can be buddies, I'll go there too. And well, before they took me for the paratroopers, they came and took me for the tank corps. I think they read up and saw that I worked on the engines and stuff, so they put me in the Army Force.
So you landed in the 3rd Armored Division, Easy Company. All the tanks were named with E's. So your tank was Eagle. Your
Eagle 7.
Eagle 7. And you're in London, Liverpool. And you want to talk about your experience overseas, your first experience? Are we talking the fall of 43?
We got off the boat at Liverpool, and they loaded us on trains and sent us to village of Concord. It was down on the Salisbury Plains, which was tank country. So we spent, well, I guess about 9 months down there training in the Salisbury Plains. Of course, when invasion came, and we went up to the port in one of them LSTs, across the channel on the LSTs.
And how about, you were just a loader at that point, and the men were sighting the tank, and as they went on, they said, well, loader, you may have the opportunity where you might have to jump in the gunner's seat. And so they had a competition for the loaders. And you want to tell what happened next?
Well, I fired, and I had the most hits of anybody, so anyway, I wound up in the tank.
He's being a little modest. He was the only person to hit 8 out of 8 at 1,000 yards. And so they knew he had natural talent. This is a picture from Fort Indian Town Gap. And a lot of the men are marked here. Clarence is right here. I'm sorry, I got to put this up. That's Clarence right there in the middle. And then there's Big Mal, James Mal. He's number 18 back there. And then number 19 was William Hay. So Big Mal and you, Big Mal was your gunner at that time, and you were his loader. And your friendship started here at Fort Indiantown Gap.
Yes. And Molly and I always used to wrestle.
The wrestling story. I think everyone needs to hear the wrestling story.
Anyway, he always wanted to wrestle with me, and he was a big, and I was a little skinny guy. And I used to get him tied up, I'd get under his leg, and on the other arm and the other side, have him tied up there, he couldn't move. But we remained friends all the time. He was a good guy.
Big Mal got hurt in a shootout, fooling around one night. Friendly fire shootout between two buddies in a tank. You want to tell that story real quick?
That was after Black time. Davis and Molly, Big Mal, would always be practicing quick draws, you know. So they said, during this battle, one guy was hurt and gave Davis his Luger with that shoulder holster. So anyway, the way they played it, they would empty their 45s, fire, and make sure there's nothing in it. And then they go back to back and step off so many steps, like 15 steps, turn and see who could draw the quickest. Well, as they did it this time, was after Black time, and Davis had that Luger up in his shoulder holster. And instead of holding his 45, he pulled the Luger out, fired, and hit Molly in the groin. Anyway, Molly survived, and they continued to be friends all the way through the war.
So, you know, you're training on the other side of the channel, and then D-Day comes, and you were D-Day plus 3 weeks. And I think you said most people would be shocked by what you saw as you landed on the beach after 3 weeks being safe as you were.
As we crossed the channel, I was out on the deck and I saw something floating. And as we got closer, I saw it was a dead man floating out to sea. And I thought in my mind that it might be playing tricks on me, so I asked my buddy Ricky if he saw it. He said, yes, I did. I saw the same thing. He said, I saw another one out the other side floating away.
You never forgot that. That was a very sobering moment. So you want to tell us a little bit about the Pershing? I know, Spearhead, the book, really picks up after you make the transition from the Sherman to the Pershing. Maybe you want to talk about some of the differences between the Sherman and the Pershing?
Basically, the 90mm gun on the Pershing that's the trick. We didn't have much more armor than the Shermans, a little bit more, but not much more. But that 90mm, that was key to everything.
There's the Sherman, and there you can see the positions of the 5 men. And you were a loader for Big Mal. And at what point did you make the jump over to the other seat?
It was after Mom's, or before Mom's, we circled over to the Philistine Gap. And over there, we lost some of the guys, and normally the tank driver would go up to the tank commander. So Molly went up to be tank commander, and I moved from loader to gunner. And,
You took that responsibility very seriously, and you're visibly, shaken by how much responsibility you had, and you were there to protect your friends. And some of the research that Adam did for the story mentioned how important it was to get that first shot off. That 7 out of 10 tank duels were always won by the tank that fired that first shot. And what do you attribute to your success as far as?
just I only had little experience with the hunting frogs. But,
You didn't go to gunner school.
no. We went to Fort Knox for basic training, and then right on up, on to Camp Campbell, and then on to Fort Indian Time Gap, where I joined the 3rd Armor at Indian Time Gap.
So at Mons, you made your first kill of a German tank, and then after Mons, you rolled on to Cologne. And this is where the Jim Bates film picks up. Is there anything you want to say about Mons or the Battle of the Bulge?
Mons is where the German tank pulled into the circle, or when we stopped for the night, we make like a wagon wheel circle. And as we were getting settled there, I heard this squeaking noise coming. I said, "That sounds like a tank." And Paul said, "Oh no, it couldn't be." And it kept squeaking, and pretty soon it came right into the center of our formation. And there was a German tank. We pulled right in there and shut the motor down. And Paul wanted me to fire an armor-piercing shell, and I talked him out of it. I said, "I can't see anything through the sight. It's a chance I might miss the German tank and hit one of our own." So he said, "All right, we'll wait. We'll wait till tomorrow morning, but we'll be up bright and early. As soon as it gets light, we're going to knock that one out, German out." And as I didn't sleep too well that night. Anyway, in the morning as it got light, I saw the German cross. I turned my gun, I fired, and hit him, knocked the tank out. And after things got settled down again, we were wondering if those guys in there were all wounded or dead. So Paul got out and walked over and lifted the hatch. Nobody's there. During the night, they must have realized what happened there with all the Americans, and I think they got out of there and got away on this. But I knocked the tank out anyway.
So that was at Mons. That was your first tank. And the Sherman, the United States could really roll out a lot of Shermans, and we really mass-produced them, and we thought that was the way. The 75mm gun, the light armor, but we could outproduce a German tank. But they had a lot more sophisticated tank. And as the war went, it got up the chain of command that you needed something more powerful. We just had nothing that could penetrate the frontal armor the German tank, so we needed more firepower for sure. So they came up with the Pershing. 20 were sent to the European theater, and there's somebody in this room that fired the very first one that got to Europe. Do you know who that person is? And I think, let me pull the picture up here. Someone captured the very first shot fired from the Pershing tank in Europe, and Clarence was the one they picked. They said, you were the Eagle Eye. I hope I have it on here. There it is. There you are. This is described in the book to some detail. You want to explain what the high brass didn't realize that day?
Everybody was lined up on both sides of the tank, and they gave me a target 1,000 yards away. I aimed and pulled the trigger and hit my target. It was a chimney on top of a house. The chimney disappeared. But when I fired, all the concussion went out the sides and knocked all the people down. And everybody was there to see the show. They all got flattened out.
Including your beloved General Morris Rose, who some have called the greatest forgotten general of the war. That's right there is the actual picture. And if you heard Clarence say, the first target was a chimney, and then they egged you on, and they said, do one better. Now, a chimney just sticking up above the roof line of the house at about, how far was it?
The first one, I started, I think, at 1,200 yards, and then just one building had 2 chimneys on. Just the tip of the one, like in the pantry, was sticking up. That was a red brick building, and the chimney ran. The other side of the house had another chimney sticking up higher. So anyway, they gave me that as a target. I think it was 1,500 yards. And I fired, knocked the whole chimney off, and just disappeared.
You went through both chimneys on one shot at 1,500 yards.
Also, when I shot the one on the pantry side, that was a red brick building, and only the tip of it was sticking up. And I fired, and the red bricks flew all around. Everybody was cheering, carrying on.
So tonight everybody got to see some of the Bates film, the Battle of Cologne. Do you want to? And the book is called Spearhead. Your division got the nomenclature of the moniker, I should say, of Spearhead for a reason. Do you want to explain the reason you guys earned that title?
That was General Rose gave us the title of Spearhead, and he always used to say he didn't want to be with the cooks and supply people. He wanted to be up at the front where the action was, so he could see what was going on. And he gave us the name Spearhead. But as it turned out, he lost his life at Paderborn. The Germans had a trap there, and they trapped one whole task force, and they went along the line, shooting, killing everything, and burning everything up. And Rose and his driver and another man in the Jeep were out ahead, and they came back and turned down a road. They got trapped between 2 Tiger tanks. And they had no choice. They had to they put their hands up and surrendered, and Rose, somehow or other, he must have moved that. They thought he was reaching for a gun or something, and the German guy pulled the trigger and shot him, hit him in the head, and he was killed.
He was the highest ranking general to be killed in the war. Some of the men survived. And they tell the story that they think General Rose was drawing his weapon to fight to the end. And the Germans did not know who they had, because the next day our men recovered his body and found that he had his papers on him, highly sensitive papers that would have been valuable to the Germans that they did not take. So they didn't realize who they had shot. So that brings us to Cologne. You jumped ahead there to Paderborn. That's okay. That's a good part of the story. So back at Cologne, the name escapes me. Is it Dean? What was the message that came over the radio as you were the tip of the spear? You were at Advance and coming into Cologne.
Lieutenant Silman said, "Gentlemen, I give you Cologne. Let's knock the hell out of it." And we did. We mobilized. But they had blockaded an underpass with trolley cars, old trolley cars, so we had to go up there and hook cables to them and pull them out so we could get up underneath and then go up onto the highway. It was start and stop, and we keep going, move ahead, and when there'd be some action, we'd stop and get it straightened out.
So you knocked out 2 tanks that day.
Well, as we went down through Cologne, first I fired at that hot tower. I thought maybe an observer might be up there, but anyway, I hit my target. It was a big clock. As we went down the road into Cologne, it was stop and go, When the Germans there would be some fire, and we'd stop, and the infantry guys were alongside. They'd go in and search the houses, take prisoners or whatever. But, we finally got to an intersection where another group was fighting down in the street below us, and the German tank had been undercover there, but he pulled out into the lot at Cologne, fired down, and hit our tank, one of our tanks there, and it shows on the film where this one guy that just become been promoted with the battlefield commission 3 weeks prior to that, but he shows him rolling off the back of the tank with his legs blown off, and the other guys were killed in the tank, burned up. But anyway, we had the job of trying to get the guy down to the German Cologne Cathedral. We kept moving ahead, house by house, until we got down close. And what's the photographer's name? Jim Bates. Jim Bates had a camera crew, And Jim came to outside of our tank and tapped on the tank and told our tank commander, Bob Early, that there's a tank down at the cathedral that just killed some guys down the other street. And they wanted us to go down and get him. So we were supposed to go into the intersection, fire, and then back away. But our driver got, when we were going up first, I saw movement in the side of my sight, and I said, Bob, a tank. And I swung over. A German tank came right into the intersection with us. And when he saw us, he backed away behind the building. A 3 or 4 story building, big building. Anyway, I couldn't shoot around curves, so I fired through the building, thinking maybe I'll get a lucky hit anyway. I fired, and all of a sudden the whole front of the building broke loose and fell down, and then that German tank was right in the way. The bricks and stuff fell down on top of their tank.
And let's, if I could jump a little bit away for a moment. One of the things that brought you out of your shell, so to speak, to talk about it, you really didn't deal with the war when you came home. You saw this Bates film, and I guess maybe now would be a quick time to mention, your parents really never went to the movies before?
Anyway, my sister-in-law and her girlfriend were at the movies, and at that time they used to show the news first and then the main program. But as the program went on there, I popped up out of the tank, and she said, my sister-in-law said, oh, my nickname was Han at home. She said, oh my God, that's Han there. And anyway, after the show was over, my sister-in-law asked them if they would play that again the next day so my mother and dad could see it, which they obliged. They did show it to them.
So, yeah, so they did them a favor so that they could see their son on film. So something else that got you through and helped you reconcile your feelings from the war was your friendship with Gustav Schaefer, who was also in the tank. He was in a Panzer tank at Cologne. And you and Gustav were opposing each other, and a very, very unfortunate thing happened that I know still bothers you to this day. And I'm sure the audience would love to hear what you can share about that moment. And that also was caught in the Bates film, which anyone can Google when you get home and see this remarkable footage. I'm not sure how much of it was on the preview show. But go ahead, Clarence. You want to talk about you and Gustav or what happened?
Anyway, he was captured, and later on, I met him, and I was at the big patio behind the cathedral, and all the brass, the mayor, and everybody was there. And I hesitated. I didn't know how he was going to accept me after all. I dropped the building on top of his head. Anyway, I went up, I extended my hand, and put his hand out, shook hands. I said to him, the war's over. We can be friends now. He said, yeah. And we did become friends. And
You were even Skyping.
Yeah.
And, you know, something that Gustav helped you get over was the unfortunate thing that happened with Katharina Esser.
Yeah.
And that's in the Bates film.
I thought maybe I might have shot her because I was firing down there and I tried to shoot the tires of the car. But Gustav Schaefer, he also said he thought he might have shot her. He said, you know, our tanks didn't have the best sights and I couldn't see that good, but I fired down that way. So anyway, we both had to share the responsibility for killing young lady and man. But,
Yeah, and there's actual footage of Esser at the side of her car. She was a store clerk. She had hunkered down in a cellar like the residents of Cologne. And for some reason, her and her boss decided to make a run for it. And out of nowhere, her car, you can see in the picture there, appears out of nowhere in between Clarence's tank and Gustav's tank. And beautiful woman, a casualty of war, and I think Gustav got you to realize, like, you didn't kill her.
well, anyway, he thought he might have killed her too, because he said there's eyes weren't good and he couldn't see very well.
You know, the war killed her. You know, neither one of you killed her, but the war did. You got to meet her family. Yeah. You got to meet her family. You want to talk about what else you do?
And whenever we go over there, I put flowers on her grave. And also the man that was killed is in the same graveyard at a little church over in Cologne. But anyway, her family wanted me to come to meet him. They wanted me to meet them. They wanted to have dinner with them. And I'm worried about meeting the family of somebody who I killed every relation at. But I finally agreed I'd go, and when I went in, the first thing that said, I'm sorry for what happened to Katharina. If it was I or the other guy, the old guy, we don't know which one killed her, but we both have to share responsibility. But they stood up and said, Mr. Smoyer, that was wartime. Their car was in a situation where it shouldn't have been. And unfortunately, the man and lady got killed there. Anyway, they accepted me and they had all of the relation there. And even down to a little baby. Everybody had to shake my hand.
And you could show some mercy to those the tankers, but I guess where I want to go with this was another little sad story. Cologne, you cleared the town. The Germans had retreated across the river, and this is where you fell in love. There she is.
Oh, that was Stolberg.
Oh, that's right. That's cool.
So Stolberg, after we went through the first set of dragon's teeth, we went into Stolberg, and the little town up on the hill was pushed back. Anyway, we stayed there. And we just have to roadblock up at the next set, on top of the hill at the next set of dragon teeth. We have roadblocks. Be up there, I think it was a week, and then you'd be back down in Stolberg. But anyway, my friend and I went walking up the hill this one day, and no fraternization. They emphasize that, no fraternization. Anyway, we looked over and saw these two nice young German girl sitting on the porch, on the steps. So we went over and talked a little bit, and finally I said, we have to leave. If the MPs catch us, we're going to be in trouble. And they said, oh, come inside. Oh, I said, oh, that sounds good. So the other guy was with me, went with the one girl in and into the lower apartment, and her mother was there. So spoiled fun for him. But anyway, I went with Reese upstairs and opened the door, and the mother and father were both there. Anyway, we talked, and the dad was telling me how much he hated the SS troops and so on. And I got to be like one of the family, but
You left you alone.
yeah.
They encourage this union.
Yeah. But all of a sudden, she said she's taking the husband down somewhere, but he won't be back for a while. So, anyway, we went into the bedroom. But nothing really happened. But later on, we moved out. When the Battle of Bulge came, we were leaving. And all the Germans were out there waving American flags and waving to us. So all those guys must have been fraternizing, not only me. Everybody had friends out there. But when we returned from the Battle of the Bulge, I went back to see Reese, and then the mother put us into the bedroom. And I told her we're going to be leaving here, and I don't know where they're going, but if I get back this way, I'm coming back to see you. And anyway, we sat there, and she was crying, and I was in here to tears too. And I knew we weren't coming back. We were heading for and up to the Ruhr.
And that was the last time we saw her.
That's the last time I saw her.
That during the research for the book, Adam, the author's dad, Bob, who Mike and I have become good friends with, tells us that he looked up Reese and found her. A little too late. She had come to the States, she had married a Marine. And, but you had moved on by that point and married your sweetheart from town, Melba. Let's go back to the war real quickly. I don't know how much time we have. You're the tip of the spear, Clarence, and because you're the only one in a Pershing and everyone else is in the Sherman, you're the tip of the spear. And each morning when you would receive your orders from Bob Early, Bob had a habit with his pipe. You want to explain this little tell? If he's a poker player, you guys would have him one, because Bob had a real serious tell when the tip of the spear was about to get into some hot mess.
When he goes to a meeting to be briefed, and he came back, and he had this pipe in his mouth, and if that pipe was jumping around, we knew who was going to be leading the charge.
So that they could judge the seriousness of their mission by how much the pipe was jumping in his mouth. And Paderborn, I think he could barely keep it in his mouth. You knew you're up against the best. You're up against the best tactical gunners and tank commanders of the Germans had. And they were also sitting ducks. You guys were basically sitting ducks. They had their tanks were they in position. They had them camouflaged. They had their guns sighted on the road that they knew you were coming in on. And yet you prevailed, but not without near tragedy for you and for everyone else?
They were shooting Panzer false at us, and we kept trying to move around so we wouldn't be a sitting target, but finally one came and hit. But fortunately, it hit on the muzzle brake of the gun, and when it exploded, the shell in the chamber also exploded. And Early said, "You're on fire, bail out," because all the fire was coming back out the breech block. So the driver and assistant driver dropped the escape hatch down underneath and went out that way. And we at the top jumped over the side and went over into a little drainage ditch. And we were crawling up through this ditch, and German machine guns were clipping the branches off the bushes right above our head. And anyway, finally, somebody looked back and said, "The tank isn't on fire. We better get back there." So we turned around and crawled back.
I think it was you that said, hey, I think just the muzzle brake is shot. You scramble back out of the foxhole under fire, and yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, I never could understand why they didn't lower their guns a little bit, because they were firing machine guns at us. The only explanation I could figure out would be that it might have been an aircraft gun, and they couldn't lower their gun anymore, or their guns. And anyway, we turned around, crawled back the same old way down the ditch. The driver went up to the escape hatch, and the three of us up in the turret went up over the backside and quick jumped in. And when the driver got in, he pulled it in gear and started to go, and just as the driver wasn't in yet. And afterward, he realized he stopped, and that it was Homer Davis, the assistant driver, came up and back in. And later on, I talked to him, and he said, "You don't realize how little room there is underneath that tank." He said, "The tank was dragging on my nose, and I couldn't get any flatter."
So then you had I think you had an incendiary shell in, and this tank comes around, and he's training in on you. And probably a person in gunner school would have handled it differently, is what everyone seems to believe. But you went with your gut, and I think your quick thinking saved the day. You want to explain how that battle ended?
Well, Rolly grabbed my right shoulder, and he called me, like I said, "Smink." He said, "Smink the tank." And I turned around and had that explosive shell in there. That's not going to knock out the tank, so I fired, and it hit right in front of the dirt, in front of the tank. Dirt fired up, and the loader put an armor-piercing shell in, and I hit him right dead center on the front glacis plate. It penetrated, went on through. And I never looked in there, because I had heard from before how when the grenades explode like that, they find men's brains and stuff hanging on the walls. And the guys, they used to have to have volunteers to go in and clean them out. But anyway,
So, and at one point, some of the men jumped out of the one tank, and you showed them some mercy. You trained the coaxial machine gun on them, and you said, the war is over, they're no longer a threat. And you saw it in their eyes, and you let them run. So that was at the Pattern War. This is all, chronicled in the book. While Clarence gathers himself here, I just hope to just tell you a little bit about what Clarence has been up to. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to put this. Lately, this is Clarence when he received his Bronze Star. Clarence is a bit of a rebel. Never wore his helmet. Couldn't say no to kids when they're bugging him for gum. He got written up for fraternizing with the civilians. I believe that was at Cologne. You got written up for not having your helmet. You can see Clarence never had his helmet on in the picture. Bates got a Bronze Star for capturing the bravery that Clarence and his men performed that day. But Clarence was always never recognized. And there's Pete, same old Pete, that started this whole thing, that did this as an Eagle Scout project, became friends with Adam. Pete becomes the man that pulls the strings and shows the military and gets people talking about why Clarence deserves the Bronze Star with Valor. So this was just in September. That's Adam Makos right next to Clarence. There's Pete behind him. That's Adam's brother, who also helps. That's Erica Makos. I can't remember Erica and Adam's sister's name. And then that's Buck Marsh, who also plays a big role in the book. Then behind there, you see in glasses in the back of the tie is Bob Makos. And that's the day that Clarence got his Bronze Star with Valor, the highest medal you can get besides the Silver Star. And he has Trump's coin here, his challenge coin. And if you want to come meet Clarence afterwards, I'm sure he'll let you hold it. It's about honoring the man who leads our country. I just wanted to mention one more thing about there's Clarence. Probably is most likely he's a cover boy. He's in the centerfold of AARP right now. You are the exact center, you know that. You got a staple going out. Yeah, and then World War II magazine, NRA, just did a story on him and Joe Caserta or Buck Marsh.
Buck Marsh.
Buck Marsh. And that's Clarence getting his medal in front of the World War II memorial in September from Pete Seminoff. Pete was nice, came up, met with my class the next day. He had his Trump challenge coin, and my kids got a real treat because they got to hold the same coin the day after President Trump had it in his hand. Just two quick more questions here. We'll wrap this up. Bob, Mike was wanted you to talk about how you stayed warm at the Battle of the Bulge.
It was so cold. I had been given a sleeping bag with one layer of blanket and a canvas cover, zipper. So I left all my clothes on, and I had a board I would lay from my seat back to the lower tank commander's seat, and I would lay back there and put my feet up over the top of the recoil tubes of the gun, zip it up, and I said, I had shoes and everything on. If the Germans were to counterattack, they were slaughtered. That's because I never would have got out of the sleeping bag.
I think, was someone going to do question and answer?
We have time for questions and answers if people would like to, time limited.
Right, so is someone else going to moderate this, or you want me to do it? Are there any questions from the audience?
You said that the first shot would take out the tank. Where did the first shot have to land?
Did you hear that? Where would the first shot have to land? What were you aiming for? I think I have a picture of that. I have a picture of you. You can actually see the tracer fire in the air. You can see this on the Bates film. You want to explain that, Clarence? You need a second? You know what? I think I deleted that slide. I thought, you know what? I got to limit this, and I had a nice slide of that. I'm sorry. But you want to hit, where do you want to hit that shot tag, Clarence?
At Paderborn?
Anytime you want to make that shot count. Where are you aiming?
Yeah. Well, I aimed it for the center, right underneath the gun, on the Glacius plate. At Paderborn, I fired. As the German tank was approaching, I fired and hit right in the center, penetrated, and knocked the tank out. And one guy got out and ran down the street, and I turned. I just couldn't shoot him. After he was out of the tank, he wasn't going to harm me anymore. So I let him go, but like I say, I never looked into the tank because I know what it looks like in there. But this time I did open the hatch. And, the German assistant driver was sitting there in the seat, and his eyes were still open, but he was dead. He had a P-38 pistol lying on the shelf beside him. I took that as a remembrance of the battle up there. And later on, I had it at home, and when we were away, the kids broke in the house, but they didn't find the gun, and I had shells and everything. So I worried somebody might get hurt. So I sold the gun, and I also had a dagger with a Nazi swastika on it. And I sold both of them to a guy from New Jersey for $500. Probably worth $20,000 now.
Any other questions?
Does tanks have a rangefinder on them, or did you just use Kentucky winches?
Did they have a rangefinder, or did they have a Kentucky?
In other words, yeah, Kentucky winches.
No, the site, my site had yards, blinds and yards, and I had matched that up with the line on the side, and that would be the range. But that tank commander usually used to estimate the range, and then I set it to that fire. Knock them off.
Which tank was more feared, the Tiger or the Panther?
Which was more feared, the Tiger or the Panther?
The tiger. But unless when we crossed the Rhine River, I would say I never ran into a tiger. But that one thing, that black thing I fired and knocked out up there, that could have been a tiger. I'm not certain. No.
I know there are a lot of hands. I'm not sure if we're going to get to everyone. We'll go with the blue shirt and then over back to here.
I lived in Lehighton, Pennsylvania for 85 years and never knew Clarence Smoyer. Smoyer? I lived in Lehighton, Pennsylvania for 85 years, and it's just a half a year ago that I heard about Clarence Smoyer. I have your book, Mr. Smoyer, Spearhead, and I read that book from cover to cover, and it's a wonderful book. And I'd really like to meet you and have you sign the book, please.
We plan to stick around. Clarence is a night owl, so we'll be here as long as you need to be.
Plus, my daughter bought me that book for Father's Day. And a friend of mine mentioned Clarence Smoyer to me, and by God, I had to get here to see Clarence.
Well, it's been an interesting evening. I'm so happy you came, Clarence, and shared your story and everything you've done. We have a little special gift for each of you. You're very, very rare, very expensive. If everybody comes to our meetings and shares their story, gets a World War II round table coffee mug. Ta-da! You have a good day. We will sign the book. Yeah. The book signing is in the lobby. Come and meet Clarence. Buy 3 or 4 books, right? And he'll sign the books for you, and you're gonna have a chance to go talk out there.
You just heard parts of the story today. You've got to get this book and see what Clarence in depth did.
Thank you, Mike.